Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers and this is Andy255, and we're just kind of take you through the basics of animation. Most of you know or have had character animation where you know all of this stuff that I'm going to be actually talking about, so you can actually stop the video. If you need a refresher course on how to do keyframing, I'm just doing the basics. I'm not going into any heavy-duty character animation stuff. I'm just going to show you how to move things around so you can get your car to crash into the fire hydrant so we can do our simulation. That's all we're going to do today. So we're going to keep this nice and short. What you want to do is you want to have your outliner open by going to Windows and Outliner. You also want to make sure you split your screen up so you can have your graph editor and your perspective screen open, so you can go to Panels, go to Saved Layouts, and you're going to want to find the one that says Perspective Graph, that one right there. Okay, now I've already got this set up, so you can move this up and down if you want to make it a little more comfortable and more efficient for yourself. And you can see that I created a sphere and a floor. Go ahead and pause the video and get those set up. Basically just a cube that's been squashed down to fit exactly on the grid. Okay, so let's get started. So it is keyframing. So let's just say we have a car that we want to go from point A to point B. Well, how it works is that we have a timeline right here, and you can see it moving in the graph editor. Okay, so when we move that, when we scrub, this is our timeline right here at the very bottom. If you scrub this, and that's what's called scrubbing your timeline, if you scrub your timeline, you can see that there are little ticks with numbers on them. Those are frames. Okay, those are frames. So you can see that on frame 1, that's the start of our animation, and we can move all the way down the road, down the timeline as far as you want to go, and we got it set up to 120. So if you want more keyframes, you can just go ahead and set those up to something like 200 frames. Let's just do that. Okay, so now we got 200 frames. Okay, so there's the timeline we can scrub. You can see this is the start frame and this is the end frame over here. And we've got this little bar here. Okay, this allows us to squeeze certain parts of our animation. So if we want to concentrate on frame 123 to 200, we can. And you can see that our numbers are not going in increments of 5 anymore. They're on increments of 1. If you go small enough here, you can see that the increments are 162, 63, so now we're all the way to frame by frame. Okay, let's go ahead and bring that down. That's kind of nice to know that, let's say if we just want to concentrate on our animation from 1 to 60, we can pull this down to 60, just like that. And that way we can, this will basically open us up to animating by 2s if we want to. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, all, so on and so forth to 60. Okay, a lot of animators, character animators, will do this. They'll just concentrate on one section of their animation and not the whole entire thing, because that can be quite daunting. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that back to 200. And here's our playhead. This one is basically play your animation, okay, forward. We can go back, play your animation backwards. Okay, we can start our animation. We can click on this guy right here, which will return us to the beginning, the very end one here on the left hand side, and then the right hand side, if we click on that, and that one goes all the way to the end. And then we can go frame by frame. Let's go back to the beginning, and we can go frame by frame forward with this icon that clicks on each frame one at a time. So let's say instead of moving my keyframe up to 5, and scrubbing, I can go in here and just basically click that until I get to 5. Okay, and I can also go back and click it until I get back to 1 if I want to. Okay, and then this goes to the keyframe. So this one will go to a keyframe. So we don't have a keyframe, so I can't really show you that, but I will in just a second. Now, if you're not getting a nice frame rate, something's wrong, something's happening here, you probably want to go into your preferences folder. Okay, you can do it by clicking on the lower right hand corner with this guy running away from a gear, or you can go up to Windows, Settings, Preferences, and Preferences, and you can go into Settings and make sure you're in centimeter, and go to Time Slider, and this is where you can set up your frame rate, and we're going to be doing 24 frames per second. And in here you're going to want to make sure you have your playback speed at play every frame, because you're doing dynamics in here too, and then your max playback speed is at 24 frames per second. That way you can get a nice animation with your car and other animations you want to do. So basic animation is just this. You move the object or character or actor, whatever the case may be, and you will hit the S key, set a keyframe. Okay, and you'll notice if you have the channel editor open, if you don't, you can do Control A until you see it. Just hold Control and then A. And this will basically tell you that you got a keyframe on every single translate value, which means translation, movement, up, down, sideways, rotate, XYZ, scale, XYZ. All the translate keys are keyframe. Now if you don't want that, let me do Control Z, that goes back. That takes away the keyframe. Right? So when we're on the timeline, we hit the S key. Let's do it again. Hit the S key. It puts a little red tick at frame 1. Okay? It also highlights everything, like I said before, all the translate keys are keyframe. That tells us there's a keyframe there. So whenever you see red, then you have a keyframe. Okay, and also in the graph editor, you'll see a keyframe where we started our timeline at frame 1. And if you click on Translate X, Y, or Z, each one of those, or all three of them, you'll see that there's a tick mark. And we call it a tangent. It's a keyframe, but we call it a tangent in here in the graph editor. Alright, don't let that worry you. It's pretty simple. We'll take you through the whole process here. So between frames 1 and let's say from 1 to 30, okay, let's make it 24. We'll move that ball. So what we're going to do is we just move that keyframe. So we've got a keyframe there. Okay, we're going to move it to frame 24. Okay, and we're just going to move that across. Okay, and we're going to hit the S key again. There we go. Now you notice that I can't really see what's going on here. I can use my middle mouse button, zoom out, but the better way to do it is hit the F key. There we go. So now it shows us between frames 1 and 24 we have a movement. This curve is showing that we are moving in time. Okay, here's the keyframes right here. From this point, from frame 1, so if I scrub my bar, if I scrub my timeline, you can see that I am now moving from frame 1 to frame 24. And you can see here that we were starting at 11.633 on the translate X. So here's my translate X, and we're at basically 11.633. That's the distance in units from 0. Okay? So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you can see I've counted over, so that's how many units over we are. That number there. Okay? And then what we do, you can see that that's what that means. You can go down to translate Y. Now that's just as flat as a pancake because we haven't moved it up at all. So that's going to keyframe 0. And then translate Z, we haven't moved it this way, so that's flatlined at 0. Okay, so nothing's been animated there. Okay, even though here it says it has, but we haven't done any. We haven't moved it anywhere other than in the X translation this way. So let's go back there. Now, just a really quick thing about the tangents is that you can marquee select them, okay, like this, and you can move these by clicking on it and moving it. Okay, So if I move it like that, we're going to ease out. We're going to start fast and then ease into that. So if you watch the animation, I've already changed it already. See how it is eased in? Go back. Here we go. Now we don't want it to bounce back, so we're going to pull that back a little bit. We're going to let that flatten out like that. Okay. There we go. So now we're easing in into the stop position, like that. Alright, so with that done, you can also break a tangent. Okay? So this is the break tangent. You can hover over something, usually it will let you know what it does, but that breaks the tangent. That means I can take that guy right there and move that flat if I wanted to. Okay? And then I can take this and move this any way I want. Okay? So if I do that, it's going to move back and then move forward. Okay? Let's watch that. See how it moved back? Let's do the timeline so you can get an idea. So it moves back. You can see why that happens. I'm going to hit the F key again. Because I'm going above the 10. So the distance, it's going back now. It's going back and then starts moving forward. So back and then it starts moving forward again. Alright. So, you know, it's like putting your car in reverse. Okay. And then deciding, ooh, okay, I made a mistake. Now I need to put it in drive, and then you take off. Alright, that's not going to happen too many times. So basically, we're going to flatten that out. So I'm going to click on that. I'm just going to click on the flat tangents. So that'll make it the way it was before. Okay, nice and smooth all the way across. Alright, so that's just basics. Okay, that's just basics. So if you want to get rid of keyframes, that's easy enough. You can right click over it and go to delete. Right click over and delete. And let's go back over here and you can go to delete. There we go. Okay, now we've got no keyframes, so the ball is kind of where we left it. So let's go ahead and type in and translate X. Let's do a 0. Now the Y is basically where we had to move the ball up. So if I go in here, and if I go to the side view, let me do a side view here really quick. This is where our ball is, so I had to move it up. Well, before you animate, let's get your tires basically on top of the ground before you do anything, so you get everything set up. And then what you want to do is you want to basically delete history and then freeze transformations. So now we have everything zeroed out. Okay, and that's in here. If you don't see this, you can go to polymodeling in your shelf editor here. Let's go back into here and let's go back to panels, orthographic. Let's go back to perspective again. There we go. So let's do one more animation together, and then we'll start back over here at frame 1. What we're going to do now is we're going to go in here and do a keyframe. This time we're just going to do a keyframe for these two. We're not going to do any rotational values. So I'm going to show you how to keyframe. If you hit the S key, it keyframes everything. But now I'm going to show you how to just keyframe certain keyframes. So if I'm going to do X and Y, if I don't do any movement this way, okay, even if I do, I can click on all three of those. Okay, and I can right click over and go to key selected, and that will keyframe just those translate values. Okay, so I'm going to go to frame 24. This will be 1 second, and I'm going to move it to the end. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and right click over and go to key selected, and notice that I've got a keyframe on this and a keyframe on that. So I'm going to hit the F key again. Okay, so you can see our curve here that we had before. This time I'm going to go in the middle of 24. I'm going to go to 12. Okay, and I'm going to pull this ball up so you can still see it, like about right that, and we're going to go in here and go ahead and keyframe. Key selected. So we're keyframing everything. You can see how this is all working. And so now, when I play the animation, we've got this ball going up and down. Okay? You can go ahead and play it again. There we go. Awesome. So we've got it going up from starting and down. So basically, up at the top, let's go to the Y translate. We're at the top here. We may want to break that. Okay. So if we break that right there. We can take this key little thing and move it down. Again, we're not going to move it down too far, just a little bit. I'm going to move this one down just a little bit, like that. And so we're going to kind of get that a different look on that. As you can see how it's kind of bouncing. It's almost bouncing on, but that doesn't look right. Let's go the other way. Like that. Like that. Now we got that little bounce on top. You can see how that. Let's go ahead and do just kind of scrub so you can see what happens there. As you can see how it's kind of like going up like that. So that doesn't really work. But you can see how that manipulates that. Let's go back in here and let's go ahead and flatline that. Okay, so what we want to do is go over here and we might want to break that tangent like that and to move that up so it's flat. And then we're going to take this guy right here and we're going to go ahead and break that tangent and move that up. Whoops. Here we go, move that up. Okay. What I'm doing is you can kind of have it, really slightly go up, or you can push it back as far as you can, okay, to make a bubble a little bit like that. You can say I'm just going to push that in a little bit like that. Okay, and so now we've got something that looks like this. Okay. Alright, so let's go back in here and let's go ahead and flatten that out again. Flatten that, and we can flatten this out too. Flatten this one out too. And so now you get something that looks like that. So you can do a lot of stuff with your tangents if you want to. Now this kind of movement doesn't really work very well because we're not really going high enough. Okay, that arc looks a little bit off. Doesn't look quite right. So when I'm scrubbing, you can see that arc just doesn't look right at all. So that's when we can go back in here and just move that up just a little bit. And move that one up just a little bit. See, that looks a little bit better. You don't need much. Let's go back again. Okay. And I can actually bring that up so it looks like that. So now you got something that looks a little more natural. Alright. So you can play around, have some fun, and basically right now we can go in here and we can kind of play with some of these things here that we have here. Okay, we have spline. We've got some other tangents in here that we can look at. So auto spline, linear clamp, stepped. You can kind of mess around with most of these if you want to, and they're also up here. These are the icons for them. Alright, so that's basic animation. Okay. Now you can delete and move animation keys. I'll show you that real quick. So we got that working now. And then if we want to move this longer, so you can do is take this, go one key before and then hold the shift key down and then click on the left mouse button and move it. Okay, and you can move that keyframe by just clicking on the arrow, holding your left mouse button down and moving it. It just takes some practice to do this. Okay, and just wait for the tick to get to the number you want. We'll do the same thing over here, and I'm just going to move that. Okay, like that. Now we've got a longer animation. We just created a longer animation for this ball. Okay, which is really cool. Right. So you can move all the keyframes at once. Let's go ahead and select this and hold the shift key down. There we go. And let's move this key, all the keys over. So let's say we don't want the car to move or the animation to start until frame 40. So now I can go back here, rewind, and play the animation. Now it won't start until frame 40. There we go. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do as well. You can right click and you can delete keys. Just delete them. You can go to paste, so you can actually cut a key first. Like if I want to cut that key and move it up to frame 42 or 43, I can right click over again and go to paste. So I cut the key from frame 40 and then pasted it on frame 43. Okay, so you can do that. You can click on a keyframe. You can copy it. Okay, if you don't want it to move, you want it to stay put, go ahead and paste it. There you go. So now the ball will wait for 5 frames before it does anything. Now notice it's kind of going backwards. That's what happens though. It's called anticipation. We don't want that on the ball. Okay, let's say for instance it's not a living object. It gets kicked. We don't want that anticipation in there. So what we do is you'll have to go into the translates. Let's go ahead and get this set up here. Let's hit the F key again. There it is. Okay, so this is the problem right here. It's not flat. So what's happening is that it is moving down. See, went underneath the 0, so it's moving down into the ground, which we don't want. So we have to select both of those, right? Or we can just select the first one and hit flatten. Okay. Now we're going to have to do the same thing with this one, though. See, because that's a problem. So we're gonna click on flatten on that one. So now, when I play the animation, it should not go down into the ground. It should just pop up. There we go, like it's being hit. Now, if you want it to be a sharp strike, you would break the tangent. Okay, and then you would move that up. So now it will look like it actually gets hit or kicked. There you go. Alright, so there's a lot of really cool things you can do with animation. Again, I'm not going to be grading you guys on animation with your cars and stuff like that, but do the best you can. And I will have another video if some of you want to learn more about this, if you're eager to learn more about a little bit about animation. I'll have an intro that might go further than this, I don't know, but otherwise just use this one and have fun and enjoy. And if you have questions, just let me know. And I'm at jbyers3@jcc.edu, so contact me there. And good luck with your animating your car. It'll be a lot of fun. And I will see you in the next video.